And here we are, live, 2 p.m. Central European Time for our China Talk. Today, we will talk about company incorporation, China, Hong Kong. We have a guest, a special guest. His name is Jonathan Liu. He's a certified public accountant in Hong Kong. And now he moved to Shanghai for quite some time to follow up with this business and taking care of his customers. I do have a small introduction about his company, so let me run this video first, and then we will talk with Jonathan directly. Okay, let's go.
Every company was founded with a unique story. It could be your dreams of childhood. It could be the pursuit of protecting the family. Or it could be the call to mission. Regardless of your visions, CWK Global understands your needs. We are dedicated to protecting every dream and pursuing your vision together. CWK Global Group headquartered in Hong Kong with branch offices in Shanghai, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Macau, and Australia. Services of an accounting firm may be regarded as general audit and tax documentations for laymen. However, CWK CPA Limited as a professional accounting firm, we provide our clients with a full range of information with our expertise to support the management of companies in decision making, such as IPO coordination and advisory, trust and fund advisory, global tax planning, internal control review, and environmental, social, and governance reporting for listed companies. We understand that there is an inseparable link between our services and the operations of every business. We therefore strive to provide a variety of business services and assistance to companies, including listed companies and multinational conglomerates. Our vision is to utilize our expertise to assist and become a strong backing for you along the growth of your business. What is your vision? Let's achieve it together.
And here we are. Hello, Jonathan. How are you?
Hi, Alberto. I'm good.
Good. Where are you now? Are you in Shanghai or Hong Kong?
I'm in Shanghai.
Okay. Are you in lockdown?
Not quite. I can still travel around China, but within China only for now because it's tough to get back. And
Yeah, I know.
I wish I'm in Italy to do this with you offline.
Trust me, I've been in Italy for the last 2 years, and I wish I could be back in China. I mean, for me, when we talk about business and the action, it's all in China. I do a lot of supports to my clients here in Europe, but I really miss the engagement and the the free and the push that you have in China with all the businesses. Anyway, today our main talk will be about the company incorporation, because sometimes, and actually very often, we come to a point where the European companies, they need to follow up with their operation in China. So be them distributing their products in China or buying from China. Sometimes they need to control things. In particular, if there are sensitive information like patents and intellectual properties and stuff like that, I always recommend my clients to have a base in the region that is considered kind of a safe box, where they can put on the related informations like the accounting, like the intellectual properties, like patents, but also all the registration for the social media accounts and so on. So beside that, they asked me, okay, but is it safe to open a company in China? And what is the situation? Or should we think about Hong Kong? What do you do? Okay, and this is always something that takes a little bit of time explaining what could be right or wrong, or if one of the two or both, which is sometimes the best solution. So I thought that we could exchange some ideas. You are a certified public accountant with a very long experience in Hong Kong, and I know that you do live in Shanghai now for quite some time, just to set up the operation for your clients, which comes from all over the world. Okay, so Jonathan, if I want to open a company in China to follow up my business, what should I do?
I think there are certain things that we have to take into consideration for sure, right? And obviously, today during our talk and sharing, I'll be talking about all these that if I were to open a company in China or open an operation that runs both uh, cross border, what would I do, right? What do I think about? What are my concerns, right? And then I think these are the points that I will be sharing with you and our audience to really get everyone a basic concept of what we're looking at when we're looking at a PRC company and a Hong Kong company to really decide what should we do, right? Where should we put our focus in? Should we put the operation team in China, the treasury in Hong Kong, or the other way around? So I think that will be our main focus today.
Yeah. Absolutely. For Visa, you prepared a small presentation where we can follow the points. Okay, so let's see what we're talking about. Okay, so the 4 points that we will touch today are company incorporation, what it means, how it costs, and so on. Okay, how to manage the cash flow between the companies, what are the tax rules for international enterprises to do business with their own branch office or independent companies, but still running in the region of China. Okay, and some case studies. Okay, obviously there will be question and answers, so the Q&A session can be open anytime. If you have questions, just any one of you feel free to ask. We will try to answer you in a timely manner. And let's go with the first slide. Okay, so company corporation, what would you like to tell us about it?
Okay, so I think for incorporating a company in China or in Hong Kong, there are a few things that we should take into consideration. Now, first of all, in different locations in China, the VAT is different, and then it's very area specific. So let's just say if you've been to Hong Kong, right? Hong Kong is obviously not that big, so there's no difference if you incorporate a company in new territories, Kowloon or the Hong Kong Island. But in PRC case, if you open a company in Shenzhen, you still have to think about which part in Shenzhen are you opening that country in, you know? So Futian is an example, and we have Luohu, and we have Shanghai. All these different areas have their own ways of treating VATs, and also they might have different sorts of subsidies for foreign enterprises. So to start with, location itself is already something that we need to consider. Second of all, I think for many of us, we would think setting up a company with a thinking of a company name is a very simple thing. Yeah. In Hong Kong, as long as there's not 100% identical of the same name, you can probably use it. But in China, there are a lot of not just forbidden words, but let's just say I have a company in Shenzhen, but I do not want the company name to have Shenzhen in it. I just want China, right? With that sorts of idea, you would require to pay $50 million as the registered capital for that company.
US
And
dollars or renminbi?
renminbi.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you also have to invest in two other companies in different provinces so that you can get the name without a specific area or district in China. So that's also something that's very different from Hong Kong.
So basically, my company, which is Blue China Hong Kong Limited, cannot be Blue China China Limited, basically.
You can,
Okay.
or I'm happy to help you to invest 50
Yeah,
mil.
but that will cost me
Yeah,
15 million renminbi deposit, and that
exactly,
would not
exactly.
deposit upfront
Yeah,
payment, and then I need to open few other branch offices in other cities to
exactly.
justify the name.
Now the good thing is you don't really have to pay the upfront payment because the registered capital system is now changed. You can uh, delay your payment up to 50 years, but the liability is still there. That's the
I
difference.
see.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you a simple questions. Okay, my Hong Kong company is called Blue China. You know it. Can I just have Blue China Limited in China, or that China is a limitation to my company name?
Uh, no, no, no. They have different setups already, right? So whichever that or whatever that will register in Hong Kong does not run the same system in China. So
Okay.
your Blue China is only registered in Hong Kong. there
Yes.
might be another Blue China that's registered in China already, so it's a different system.
Yeah,
So
okay.
very
But my
likely your
question, my
company, right?
question is, the China in the name, which is one word, Blue China is one word to my company name. Okay.
Right.
Does that China does any particular troubles to the company registration process,
If you
or should it
translate
be
it
just a
to
separate China?
if you translate to Chinese, because obviously you need a Chinese company name, right? So if you translate it to Chinese and it becomes like 蓝中国, then
Hmm.
that's an issue, right? Because you have China in it. Yeah. And at the same time, at most you can get is probably Blue China bracket Shenzhen Limited. You won't be able to get, Blue China Limited here. So
Yeah.
that's another thing to think about.
All right. Okay. So
All
this
right.
is, yeah, yeah. This is
Okay.
very interesting. Okay.
Let's
So
continue.
what I know, running my company in Hong Kong, and mainly most of my times being around the world, I know that I can take advantages of offshore regimes when I do pay taxes. Okay. So I don't really have taxations for my business that I run in Hong Kong. Is this the same case for China, or is it a different story?
Absolutely not. And in China, it's a global tax system. And I mean, it would be better illustrated for our audience to understand the whole territorial regime of a tax rule. Yeah, and that will be covered in case studies later in the chat. So we can continue with the business scope, right?
Okay.
Business scope is also sensitive. Um, so once I start a company in China, yeah, you would want to include technically as much things that you can imagine that you will do in China at one go, right? So you can
Hmm.
have like 20 business scope under your business registration. The reason is if you were to add something else, it's a lot of paperwork to do, you know. Whereby in Hong Kong, you can technically change it every other week if you feel like. Yeah, it's a lot less hassle for any company to focus on that. And obviously, your business scope in PRC that really might affect your tax rate, but that's another topic, right? And every different business scope and its related tax rate might be different. But for you to enjoy such tax benefit, there are a lot of paperwork that you have to file. So then, if we were to really think of what our business scope is, I would fully recommend just write whatever you can and then just hope that in the future there won't be any new business that is outside of your original creativity.
Okay. So your suggestion is to add them all, so that
That's
we're gonna take care of the full business, basically 360 degrees. Okay, but that's a lot of job, isn't it?
So it's really important to think or speak with someone like us, like or yourself, with the experience of how to set up a company in China to make sure that you don't take the easy route to start and then you end up with a lot of trouble at the end. That's the worst for most of our clients, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Okay. Talking about the shareholder nationalities. Okay, I know there are no limitations with Hong Kong.
Right.
Is it the same in China?
In China, to be very honest, on paper there is no limitation to it, but then you'll be having different type of companies, and obviously to set up a PRC natural person owned company is way easier than having an American setting up a PRC company. They require more paperwork. There are lots of proof to do, and I think just by doing the notarization of your passport is already something that must be done. And obviously, right now with the COVID measurements, then it's even tougher for foreigners to come here to set up a company without showing up in China. So that's another thing that Hong Kong might be easier to achieve.
Okay, so Hong Kong is much easier with that. Okay, and
Right.
with regards to the company structures, okay, I know that many things have changed recently. In the recent years, there have been new laws coming in for the company registration. The last one that really made a big difference for foreigners to open an office in China was what it's called the fully foreign-owned enterprise. Okay, but I have heard that today there is a complete comparison between a local company and a WFOE company, which is making things a little bit more fair. What what would you say about it?
I would say that is partially true. Uh, for a Woofy to set up in China, I think right now they just request a shorter list of things that you have to notarize compared with before. Yeah. Right now, we just have to provide the article in association of the company, maybe the passport or the ID of the shareholders of the holding company, and there are relevant company material that's provided when you open the bank account to show that your mother company has some business or to prove that you will actually do business in China. So I think these are relatively easier compared to before. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned about a bank account. Okay, a
Right.
company bank account. What's the situation in Hong Kong? Because my understanding is that in China, once you set up a company, things are getting smooth. You know, you just present the documents, and within a reasonable time, the bank will open your bank account to be operative. Okay.
So
Maybe
the
some further detail we will analyze later. Okay, but my
right.
question is, what's the situation in Hong Kong now? I
Well,
mean, I've been dealing
the
30 years
beauty,
with Hong Kong companies,
the
but for the last
beauty,
5 years, it's screwed up. What's going
right.
on?
So technically, I think it has a lot to do with what happened with HSBC. You know, they were fined, I think, 400 mil for money laundry that they didn't do their KYC enough. And then since 2018, the company ordinance, they issued a new AML set of ordinance. It's called anti-money laundering ordinances. And within those, there are a lot of measurements that the banks have to comply with. Then obviously the bank unions, they have their own sets of rules that they have to comply with. So that at the end of the day, the worst part of setting up a company in Hong Kong is the bank account. I have to admit that. But
Yeah,
obviously, there are a lot of vendors or suppliers or people in this field. They do realize that this issue has been a pain in the butt. Yeah. So then I have been seeing a lot of virtual banks like AirWallex, you know, and then there are some foreign banks that are being comparatively friendly with opening Hong Kong bank accounts. Let's say Singapore. Yeah. So
okay.
even if I have a Hong Kong company, I can speak with Singapore OCBC and have them open a Hong Kong company owned bank account in
And do
Singapore.
you need to go to Singapore to sign
You
the
don't.
bank?
You can do it in Sim.
But now things are changing. So OCBC oversees Chinese Bank Corporation, right?
EPS is also okay. You know.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So this could be one of a solution. And by the way, I know that there are some other solutions which are kind of facilitators, and they're not really bank infrastructures, but they are fintechs that open the so-called the virtual bank account. That
Right.
means that you send the money to their bank accounts, but with your name, and then you can operate, incoming remittance and outward remittance and payments and everything using their bank account. Okay, is it possible? I mean, is it a good thing? Is it a good solution? Is it viable?
I can explain this in a very simple concept. Yeah. So the reason why this sorts of service provider exists is because technically the bank has dedicated their KYC job to these sorts of service provider, right? And at the same time, if I were to have a company and to use a virtual account, I think the most important thing that we should look out is that does this bank provide you with your own actual bank account number, right? By that, what I mean is that if I were to receive a payment from my clients, do they send this payment directly under an account that's under my company's name, or they send it over to that service supplier's name and their sub account. If that's my risk measurement, if at the end of the day this is my bank account with my own company's name on it, and then I can receive money with my own company name without the service provider's name before my company name, I think it's safe. Yeah. And obviously, this I do not represent all the service provider, right? I mean, the best way to do it is ask someone like us. Maybe we have dealt with these sorts of association or service provider already, so then we'll be able to tell you, oh, well, with certain suppliers, you should do this before you put in any money to make sure that when you want to withdraw the money, you don't have any issue. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a major issues. And also there is another issue. I do have some experience about it because I tried
Yep.
them with the recent company that I opened, and I had some troubles dealing with them. Technicalities maybe, but still things that let me waste weeks to get things done. Okay, the troubles were mainly caused by the fact that these companies, they do have separate bank accounts for international remittance and local remittances. Okay, so I could not receive money in an international account to use the money to pay for local suppliers. Okay, and vice versa, I could not receive money on the local account to pay for an international suppliers or other people I need to pay. So that was, troublesome. So, it was something that really took some management skills. Okay, and then definitely not the easy way it used to be. The honeymoon with Hong Kong Bank is gone. Okay, and definitely this is something. So let me go to the next slide. Okay, so let's
Yep.
talk about expenses, payments, and fluctuation of exchange rate. What is it about these slides? What would you like to tell us?
The central message of this slide is to help us understand after our cash enter our company account, how liquid is that cash? That's the most important message that I want to share with all of us. Yeah. So for the cash that sits in your PRC company, you must have a fapiao, so invoice that goes to one specific vendor of yours to be treated as an expense, or else you technically can use that money inside your company, right? So this
Yeah.
is very different from Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, let's just say I have some money in my company and I'm the only shareholder and director, and I want to use that to pay some of my expenses. And then is that doable? That is very doable in Hong Kong. The only thing that you have to do, or the accountants have to do, is that we create a current account between the shareholders and the company, so that I owe the exact amount that was paid from my company. If that is being recorded properly, then this is a risk-free or is a very legit way of using the money in the company. And this is something you can achieve in China.
All right. So what you're telling me is that one of the solution I could have, should I be a sole proprietor of a limited company in Hong Kong, I could open a bank account in any international banks, okay, and use it as a dedicated account for my company. Uh,
Sure.
that should be it, right? I mean, that account is recognized as a company account at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
let me check one of the questions that I've seen. Okay.
Sure.
Um, and this is okay. Dr. Kottenbauer, he says, how about transfer in and out of mainland China for the various incorporation? So will there be any limitation to transfer money out of China?
To transfer, this is actually the exact next point that we were going to cover. Yeah. So if we
Okay.
were to transfer any money outside of China, then you have to go through the State Administration of Foreign Exchange. So you have to file and provide them with invoices or to explain to them why you need to pay this amount outwards. Yeah. I believe if you were paying towards the same vendor, that you only have to do one filing. Yeah, but if you were to, obviously, if the amount is significant and then you're paying to different, then you have to do it every time, which is very I would say it's quite troublesome. And at the same time, if you do that, there is a withholding tax of 10% that you have to pay before
Ten
you can
percent.
10%. Yeah,
Oh,
depending
I heard it was
on the region.
6%. Maybe different region.
Depending on the nature of the payment. So
Okay.
if it yeah, and also is there like a double tax treaty agreement between the two countries that also come into play? Yeah,
All right.
so that
Okay.
is
Always, Dr. Kattenbauer is asking these other questions. Okay. Are there any restriction in Hong Kong?
there's no restrictions in Hong Kong. That's the
No
beauty.
restriction in Hong Kong.
Yeah. The only thing is that if the amount is huge, then let's say we're transferring 3 mil US, then the bank would like ask you, where's this going? Then you just provide them with whatever contract that your revenue was earned, and it'll be okay. So
All right.
instead of the government is asking you questions, the bank is asking you questions. So we can already see the authority difference right here. Yeah.
Okay. And how do you feel about it? Do you feel is it troublesome or is it normal business?
If you ask me, I think if in a Hong Kong perspective, if I'm, transferring 3 mil outside and they need some proof, I think that's a good safety measurement, right? Or else, let's just say I am the CFO of the company and I'm moving 3 mil US out of the bank without any proof, then, it's risky for everyone, isn't it? That's what I think. Yeah.
Absolutely. And let me tell you my experience about it. As you know, I moved to China back in 1988, and since then I ran a business out of China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan, and Singapore. And I never had problems. I mean, everything was different somehow in terms of approach. But once you get into the system loop, it was easy. Just following the rules, it was easy to get things done. Okay. Instead, I do have a lot of frustrations going on with the banking systems in Europe, for instance. Okay,
Right.
there are somehow much more limitations, signatures, and stuff, and procedures, and documents to sign, and really tedious procedures to go on in Europe when you open bank accounts to operate your European companies. Okay, so it just a matter of mindset, to my point of view. Okay, we have Kim was asking another questions. Okay, and ask, is it possible to pay from Hong Kong company to PRC company in renminbi? Well, my experience, and then let's ask Jonathan about it. My experience is yes, because any bank in Hong Kong, they do also have a renminbi account. So they you just need to make the transfer without a problem. I mean, just only a problem with the interface that you use beyond banking that tells you
That
what the
is not entirely true. That's
okay.
not entirely
That was my experience. So
Yeah. So right now, if you have a company in China, like Kim said, yeah, the first thing you have to do is that you have to tell the bank, I have a money coming from Hong Kong to PRC. Yeah. The second thing they have you do is that you have to file for this payment. So you have to sort of set up this offshore account for your company to receive payment coming from Hong Kong. But it's a one-off thing. I think after you set it up for the first time, then you can continuously to use this offshore bank setup to receive funds from all over the world, really, because they use Swift code. Yeah.
Thank you, Jonathan, because I never thought about that problems because it was already processed the first time. Okay, so
No problem.
I didn't consider it a limitation, but thank you for pointing it out. Okay, there is another questions coming from Amy or Emanuela. Hello, Emanuela, how are you? Okay, for company procedures with banks, government, etc., how much can I do things digitally?
Right now, everything is quite digital, but what if you ask me, I would say without an agent to help you use the digital system, it would be very tough for a foreigner to just go onto the system and do everything themselves. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
that's.
because of a language problem, or is it because of a mindset approach to the solution?
I would say
But
not only it's just a language problem. I can share a simple example so we can all know.
please,
Yeah.
please.
If we were to set up a PRC company, the first thing that you have to have is your company address, isn't it? Okay,
Hmm.
so when you want an address in China and you don't have a physical presence there, what should you do? But you have to provide this address to fill out the forms to set up this PRC company. Only by that you can do it, right?
Okay.
It's a chicken and egg issue if you don't
Okay.
have someone to help you. So
So
then what the
basically, I do need to have a stable representation in China to be able to use the to have the company basically.
you need a virtual address,
Okay.
right? Yeah. So that virtual address would go back to what we were just talking about, the company incorporation part. Where should you put that virtual address? Right? That involves a lot of other things. The VAT, the rebate, So
Okay.
then yeah. It's
Let's
not just
talk
the language.
about yeah.
So
Let's talk about the VAT issues. Okay, with the
okay.
and the tax regime. Okay, with the next slide. Okay. Um, what's it? Try to give us a pictures of what it is the VAT systems in China. It's somehow difficult to explain, isn't it?
Is it? I mean, it's just when the goods come in, you pay certain tax. When the good leaves, then you can rebate those, right? That's about it. That's a essential
Okay, but
aspect of
the
the deal.
different tariff you may have are location based or are product based,
Profit base.
profit based.
Yeah. And also location based. So
I'm talking
this is
about VAT. I'm not talking about income taxes. Okay,
so
yeah.
VAT, this 3 to 13%, it is split between the central government and the district, the area, how do you say it? The tax bureau of that specific district, right? So if I
Hmm.
pay $100 of tax and VAT, $50 goes to the government, and the other 50 goes to whichever district you choose to have your company at, right? And with this 50%, they can then offer you how much they can rebate to you. So this is one of the stuff that they use to attract different companies to go to their specific districts. It's by the VAT rebate.
You're right. Okay,
Yeah.
just adding more details on the question of Emanuela. She's saying, okay, I was interested how much I have to go to agency and stand in queues and in original physical document, etc., versus how much can I do online. The answer
Oh
is
no. Then no. Then you just have to send the agency the emails. You don't have to queue anything. They'll do it for you. Yeah.
I'll do it for you. Fantastic.
We have a lot. There are a lot of people in China, so
Okay.
human labor are relatively easy to.
Okay, before we proceed, there was a previous questions, okay,
Okay.
from Marianne. Okay, she was asking, how can I do job offer for China? Uh, it's not so clear to me. I mean, do you want to offer job in China, or are you looking for a job in China? I mean, this is not covered in this session, but
Right.
maybe if you tell us more, we can understand
I
how
mean,
to
this is a good topic. Maybe Alberto
for
next
the
time.
next one. Yes,
You
for the
know.
next. Perfect. Okay. So let me ask you another questions. Okay. Income taxes. Okay.
Okay.
Let's say that I'm fortunate enough that my business run well and I'm making profit. Okay. How do I manage this profit? I mean, and how much tax should I pay in China and how much tax should I pay in Hong Kong, depending on where I have a company running?
Right. Okay. So in China, the tax, if your profit is below $3 million renminbi, okay, it's Chinese yuan, then it's 20%.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then anything after 25. Compared to Hong Kong, anything under 2 mil profit is 8.25, and anything above it is 16.5. Yeah.
Okay. That if the business is run in Hong Kong,
Yep.
onshore.
Onshore.
Okay.
Onshore. Onshore.
Okay. And assuming the case that I'm running a company that sell products to China, okay, and I do have my distributors in China who are taking good care of a business, and I want to and I want to establish an organization in China, and I found the location. I find everything's to do, mainly support my distributors and things. But I also want to have a regional company for the Southeast Asia. Based in Hong Kong, so that I can handle many other things. Can my own company be the holding company for the China enterprise, or should they be different companies? You know,
Um, I think you're referring into just how the cash can flow from the PRC company to Hong Kong, right? Or is there?
I'm referring. Okay, the first question is: can the China company be a subsidiary fully owned by the Hong Kong company?
Of course,
Okay. That's no problem, right?
of
Okay,
course.
if that is the case, and can I get the order from my distributors to the Hong Kong company instead of having the order in China?
To sell stuff or to buy stuff?
Yeah, selling.
Of course, you can sell it to your Hong Kong company, and your Hong Kong company then can then sell it to your PRC company.
All right. Okay. So let's go with some case studies that you prepared. Okay.
Let's
So
do it.
the first one is a typical trading company. Okay. So basically, there is a European customer, a vendor. Okay, who's selling in China, and there is an agent in between. Okay. Uh, what's abnormal about this situation, or is it all normal? Is it so fluid as it is represented in the picture?
I think it is. It's quite straightforward, and this is just logic comes to mind. I sell it to the guy, and the guy distribute it for me without any consideration of tax whatsoever. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and how about the money? What's a money route? Okay, the money goes from the user in PRC to the agents, or can the money go directly to the vendor and then the vendor pay the agent? How would it be?
The money should be it goes to the agent because in this case the agent keeps profit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Assuming
Okay.
that the agent is not related to the vendor,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the vendor sells it to the agent, and that part of business is done, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
the agent would then sell their goods to the users.
All right. Okay. So let's go to the next case study that you brought. Okay, this one. How would you describe the situation here? It's a little bit, as you say, restructured. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The reason why we would suggest to add this layer of agent in between the PRC company and the Hong Kong company, part of the reason is there is some good tax rates in Hong Kong, and also a very important idea or tax regime is called the territorial basis of taxation. So this part is a little bit of a lecture, so bear with me for 5 minutes. So then the reason why we have to understand this is because Hong Kong is a territorial regime tax place. What that means is that any revenue that is not generated from Hong Kong, you don't have to pay tax for it. So how does the tax bureau in Hong Kong identify whether or not this revenue was generated from Hong Kong, right? They look at it as a what they call is a permanent establishment test. So how did they test that? Is there a physical office with staffers who resides in Hong Kong for 133 days or above? Yeah, that's the
Mm-hmm.
first criteria. And we can imagine that most of the vendors or the agent A does not actually have such establishment. It's a shell company. Yeah. Okay. Second question: where were the contract negotiated? And with the restructure case, most of the contract will be negotiated either in the vendor's original place, which would be Europe, or in China if they go for a business trip. Yeah. None of them will actually happen in Hong Kong. So this is
Okay.
the second thing that they look at. The third thing is, does the goods actually travel through the Hong Kong port? Yeah. And obviously, you won't be doing that because the goods ship directly from the manufacturer to the end users, or maybe a third party agent that's not within the entities. So with this route, then the Hong Kong tax bureau would consider this to be not taxable income because this revenue did not generate from Hong Kong. But we also have to be very careful in terms of how we file this offshore case because uh, although I give you this four questions guideline of how the general direction should be, but our cases mostly if we file for an offshore claim, the IRD, which is the tax bureau in Hong Kong, will come back with around 20 questions asking for documents to prove maybe conversations of why do we as your tax representative would think that it didn't generate from Hong Kong. So that's just the whole idea of what it means to have a territorial based taxation. Yeah.
Okay, so let me sum up what you just said. Okay, basically, if I'm not in Hong Kong for and not residing in Hong Kong, and I have no employees residing in Hong Kong with my Hong Kong company, and I am dealing business with European clients where I signed the contracts. Okay, and I am my target market is China, where the revenue is coming from. Okay, basically, I am respecting the situation that I'm not resident in Hong Kong, and thus all of my revenue is offshore. So there is a zero taxation to that. Okay.
There's
Uh,
only one thing that we should
yeah.
be careful about is that when we look at the structure, right? Ultimately, I don't know. I assume that ultimately we want the money to return to Europe from the Hong Kong company because the profit stayed there. Yeah.
Yeah.
This part is the tricky part because if we do apply for offshore, then the double tax treaty agreement of the dividend going back to the original country will not apply.
Okay.
Okay, so then let's just say if
Which means that I will be entitled to pay the full taxation back in the original country where the money is destinated to, right?
you pay the dividend tax,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
If
fair
I don't
enough.
know,
Okay.
Europe
Fair enough.
itself is
But I do
US.
I do have one question. Okay. Now,
Yeah,
we live in a digital world and most of the contracts now are considered digital contracts. So that means that I purchase something online and the order confirmation and transactions is online. Okay. Should I have my server in Hong Kong? Is
that
the
doesn't matter.
contract negotiated in Hong Kong?
Yeah, that doesn't matter. The server doesn't
That
matter.
doesn't matter.
That doesn't matter.
Okay, so the server location does not define the location of a contract.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. Okay,
It
this
doesn't.
I didn't know
It is.
myself.
It
It
is
was, it was
based.
not a tricky question. I really didn't know.
Yeah, yeah. It is based on. There is a specific interpretations of the policy because of this. So because of e-commerce, right?
Yeah.
Basically. So the idea is where is your servicing team? That's the most important part.
Okay, but since the servers are in Hong Kong, okay, the servicing team can be anywhere. Yeah,
So
right.
let's just say my service in Hong Kong, right? That's fine.
Yeah.
As long as my whole team of people who are servicing, doing the customer service or taking care of the posting of goods and everything is not in Hong Kong, that's okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fair enough. Okay. This is let me see if I have other questions. Okay, because this is a very tricky thing, and so the ideal option would be to have a what I call an holding company in Hong Kong that basically take care of all the conference and the major transactions, and then the service company based in China, which receives sufficient funds to run the company, but then the profit will be held in Hong Kong, right?
This part we have also to be careful because this is where it's very easy to fall into profit shifting accusation. Okay.
Yeah, this is
Because
tax planning somehow, right?
tax planning and tax evasion, like I've always put it, is a thin line. So then the idea of it is to proceed these sorts of payments in an arm's length transaction. What does it mean by an arm's length transaction? Is that I selling my goods to the Hong Kong company has to be the same price that I sell it to a third party. So the price that I sell from company one to company B, even if it's my subsidiary, I should still treat it as a third party, right? If that's the case, then there's no profit shifting because you are acting faithfully that these two companies as individuals.
All
That's
right.
just how I'm gonna put it. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, as you wrote in your conclusion, okay, Hong Kong as a treasury center for cross-country operation, that's the best solution, where flexibility, tax benefit, and stability are in place. Okay.
I think also I would want to add one thing is that because if you were to have a growing business in China, eventually you will need some sort of operating expenses, and your operating team will be in China, right? And for that team and the money that you earn or receive from China to get out of China, having a Hong Kong holding company, all the paperwork and the double tax treaty agreement would definitely be beneficial for uh, the ultimate holding company.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, I do have a questions for talking about stability. Okay, we have seen in the news in the recent years that Hong Kong went through some turmoils. Okay, and turmoils in terms of political stableness, or people fighting for a democracy that there never was. However, there is an agreement in place that until 2047, there won't be any change in the legislations in Hong Kong. So one country, two systems, and as Hu Jintao described it back in 1995. Okay, to grant the former governor Chris Patton a smooth transition to hand over the country to back to China. Okay, I was there, and trust me, it was very exciting moment. So,
Right.
but yet again, stability. There is this kind of weird feeling around where people don't feel very stable the situation now. In particular, now after 2 years of COVID and a lot of lockdowns and the factory closed and everybody can ship, can deliver, can't work, you can't do nothing. Okay, what's your feeling about it? What would you say as an Hong Kongers who lives in China now for quite some times?
I think, I mean, this is a question that I've been asked just wherever I go to start with, right? It doesn't matter if I speak to an American, European, even like fellow Chinese, they ask me the same stuff. What do you think? What's Hong Kong stability like? Yeah. And I think just now in 1st of July, when we had our 25th anniversary of the handover, our chairman, he came to Hong Kong, gave a speech to promise that the one country, two system will go forward and sustain. I look at it as at a financial way. I'm an accountant, so I see stuff in the financial spectrum. I see that at the end of the day, Hong Kong dollars being packed with the United States dollars, this is a tool, or a very useful tool, if the Chinese were to continue to pursue globalization of renminbi, yeah,
Mhm.
or to push the CIPS that they're trying to do. The reason is that um, in Hong Kong, you have to say that their equity investment is still very strong. And at the same time, this is also because of the same idea that we're talking about, the US and HK dollar being packed. This really affects, or it has its use for China going forward. So I really don't think that will change in a very short time.
Okay. Well, thank you, because this is really a questions that I get asked always, all the time, and my answer is okay. Talking about stability, I don't see much stability in the West as well. I mean, look at what happened last week.
Right.
It's in UK. They started Monday with Boris Johnson as Prime Minister and the King and Queen Elizabeth as a monarch. I ended up on Friday with Mestas as the prime ministers and Charles III as the king. So
Right.
there was a big shift in just one
I
week.
mean,
Okay.
honestly, if you ask me about like Hong Kong's political source of stability, I can just answer you a very simple line, right? Can it get any worse?
No, I
Yeah.
mean,
So
I think I've seen the
the only
worst
way
time in Hong
forward
Kong back
is
in
a better
2019.
future,
And
isn't it?
yeah,
You know,
absolutely,
that's about it.
absolutely. And I can talk about Italy as well. There is so much mess in Italy going on that you have no idea. And democracy is not prevailing. I mean, democracy is not is a difficult thing. You know, it's difficult to enact, and each country has their own way to ap- approach the problem. So before we go for the last questions, okay,
Okay.
let's see. Okay, this is Fosco. Fosco is asking, hi Alberto and Jonathan, I wanted to ask if an agency such as CWK, is it possible to open an Hong Kong company and Hong Kong bank account without actually being there at all, remotely 100%, and managing it in the same way? Well,
The first question is where are you from?
I think
Oh,
Fosco by the name is European, most probably Italian, because
right.
his Baccaglia is his last name, and I'm able to
Honestly,
pronounce it.
even for PRC in Hong Kong, we can do that, but it really depends on if the bank is cooperating, right? So we
Okay,
work with
he's
different.
talking about a Hong Kong company.
I
Can you
know, I
open
know,
an
I
Hong
know.
Kong company remotely and have a bank account without actually being there? But yes,
To open the
I'm
company for sure you can, right? But
yes,
with
yes. I mean,
the Hong
I
Kong
have
bank
done several
account,
times in the last few months for other clients. So
the Hong
with
Kong
your
bank
help, it can
account
be done
is
very easily.
yeah, the Hong Kong bank account is the tricky part because if the London HSBC they're open to help with this due diligence meeting to be held in London and send documents back to Hong Kong, then you're good, right? Yeah, but if they're not, then they're not. So
Yeah.
it's not just one bank. You know, it depends on which bank you're using, and at the same time, by your meaning of Hong Kong bank account, does it mean it has to be like a physical retail bank, or could it be a U.S. bank, a virtual bank account that you have your own account and your own name and your account number, but the bank is physically in the States, you know. So I think the bank account is a tricky question, but the Hong Kong company incorporation is a simple yes.
Okay, let me answer directly to Fosco. Fosco, yes, you can open the company, and once we know what your company wants to do and how it wants to operate, then we can definitely define which bank and how to operate it from remote. But it's a no-brainer for who does this every day, like Jonathan. Well, and Fosco is Italian, of course. So let's say that we want to show how to contact you. Okay, if people want to
Right.
reach you out. Okay, so this is your beautiful business card, and there is your WeChat QR code that people could scan right now live, and they will definitely get in touch with you by email jonathan.liu at cwkglobal.com or even
That's it.
better on LinkedIn. There is a link
Sure.
on on the post that I made for the event, and we ran out of 53 minutes, Jonathan. Okay, so
Right.
is there anything you would like to ask, or is there any question coming from the public? I mean, from the listeners, is there anyone who needs to have a specific question to Jonathan or myself? Uh, Please write it down. If we're not able to answer you during this live, because we're going to close it in a couple of minutes, then we will definitely reply to you on the direct messages on the social that you watched us from. Okay. So, again, Jonathan, I want to open a company in Asia. Where should I go?
We'll talk.
Fantastic. All right, then. Jonathan, it was a real pleasure meeting you today. Okay.
Thank you
I
for having
know
me. Thank you for having me.
you and I have been talking so many times about different projects. Okay. And I'm sure these talks will be, maybe we should set up a new one, always with you, to talk about different aspect of running the business in China. What do you think?
I think the employment thing, the HR, could be, something that could be useful for everyone.
Beautiful, beautiful, definitely. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Looking
Thank you.
forward to hear from you soon. And
All right.
thank you,
Thank you,
everybody,
people.
for
Thank you,
interacting with
everyone.
us. It
Yeah.
was a pleasure. Goodbye.